there's the PhDs, there's the postdocs, what happens after the postdocs. There was lots of discussions that happened yesterday of how does the system, including the SGCIs in your specific countries, SGCI in the continent, support you to move within the journey of academia as you go to become a worldly renowned expert. This is how we're going to start. So we'll start firstly by quick introductions. We know each other from the different consortia. So the SGCI group, they know each other, and the other guys from the postdoctoral centers, they know each other. So just very quick round of introductions. You tell us your first name and the organization you're coming from. Short and sweet, and then we can take it from there. I'll start from this side.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Paul Majaliwa, Jackson Gilbert. I represent True Forum.
I'm Henry Zakmumpa, a Carter Fellow from Makerere University, Kampala.
Good morning. I'm David Ngige, representing National Research Fund, Kenya.
Good morning. I'm Alexandra from UK.
Good morning. My name is Ya, Banga Africa Project, University of Ghana.
Good morning. I'm Tabi from South Africa, South African Medical Research Council. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Mamadou Sy from Senegal, Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation.
Good morning, everybody. I am Sekou Traoré from Guinea. I'm coming from the Ministry of Higher Education.
Good morning. I'm Disa Madeira from National Research Fund, Mozambique.
Good morning. My name is Kondwani Victor Gondwe from National Commission for Science and Technology, Malawi.
Good morning, everyone. Carnegie is my name. I'm from the Research Council of Zimbabwe.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm Filippo from Zambia, National Science and Technology Council. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Adelaide Asante. I work with the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation of Ghana.
Good morning. My name is Dorothy Muhebi. I work for Award based at TICRAF. I'll be sharing with you our mentoring model this afternoon.
Morning. I'm John Pettifor from the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg.
Hi, I am Maha from CAG, Saudi Arabia, King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology. I am here as a member of the Gender Working Group, which is part of the JRC. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Armand Bonot from Sarima.
Morning, everybody. I'm Elsery Barnard with the Academy of Science of South Africa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Farai Kapuzarua. I'm representing the University of Pretoria.
Good morning. I'm Yeo Lenon from Côte d'Ivoire of Paris.
Good morning. I'm Femi Bamiro. Well, I just say observer from National Research Fund, Nigeria.
Good morning. Gabriel Karubanga, Macquarie University, Uganda.
Good morning. My name is Dominic Chwangi, University of Nairobi, under the ISRI's African Academy of Science.
Good morning. I'm Gaimeri Bakari from Sokoine University, ISRI's Fellow.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Marta, representing the Carta program.
Good morning. I'm Anita Filbert from University of Dar es Salaam, Carta Fellow.
Good morning. Emmanuel Kaindoa, Carta Fellow from Ifakara Health Institute, Tanzania.
Good morning. I'm Julius Okuni from Makerere University,
a Carnegie-supported postdoc fellow.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Kello, Ruforam.
Good morning. I'm Anja Jamia, Carnegie Fellow, Makerere University.
Morning. My name is Mohammed Sheikh from Tanzania Commission for Science and Technology.
Good morning. I'm Fred Hendricks from South Africa, representing the African Humanities Program.
Good morning. I'm Gail Ramon from the University of Cape Town, representing the DEAL project.
Good morning. I'm Deshni from the University of Cape Town.
Good morning, Obed Ogega, the African Academy of Sciences, ISARISE.
Good morning. I'm Noktula Vilarazi from the University of Pretoria, Future Africa.
Good morning. My name is Felista Musembi, a postdoc fellow under Ruforam. I'm based at the University of Nairobi.
Good morning. Jeffrey Belton, University of Edinburgh, supervisor, employer, and advisor of research students and postdocs.
Thanks, Jeff. And two more at the back.
Good morning. I'm Nigis Gezai from the International Foundation for Science.
Morning, Melody Mens-Kutsia from University of Pretoria, working on the Perka initiative. Thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot. So if you speak of Perka, the person who's at the center of it, the engine, is Melody. She's overstating her role within the Perka.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Moses from Namibia, representing the National Commission on Research, Science and Technology.
Thanks a lot, colleagues. At least we can put some of the faces to the names as we speak. But before we go on to the program, how many postdoctoral fellows or center managers knew about some of these colleagues from the Science Granting Councils? Anybody who knew about the Zambian Commission for Science, Technology or Council? Malawi, Tanzania? You've heard of it, you've seen it somewhere, but you don't know about what they do, is it? Even the guys from the NRF, in South Africa, you've never heard of NRF? Let's be honest, maybe we think we do something, but from the other side, we're not doing quite a lot. And that's what this conversation is all about. How do we get to know each other, and how do we be at the forefront of postgraduate support within the continent? We're starting with Perka, but I'm sure going forward, most of the postdoctoral programs within the specific countries will be growing as we go. But it's all about learning from each other. It's all about having the listening ear. It's all about the network that we're creating here. And by the way, in case you're wondering, I'm not Prof. Franz Swanapo. I'm just representing him. Unfortunately, he was unable to join us on short notice. He got ill. So as I said, for those who joined us just now, I'm Seppo from the National Research Foundation. We will start with unpacking Perka project. We'll have 3 presentations from the Perka project. Later on, we will have presentations from the Science Granting Councils, represented by COSTECH. They will showcase what they do within this space that we're discussing today. And I want us to spend more time in terms of teasing out questions, discussions, and coming up with tangible solutions on this project, as well as the other way around on how we can enhance what's already existing within the specific granting councils. To kickstart the ball, I'll call upon Amata to just give us a presentation on one of the models on postdoctoral fellowships that's being used under Carnegie. Yes, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Can you all see me? I can feel this is a bit on the way. Thank you for the opportunity that you have given the Carta program to present in front of such an audience. The Perka project has already been a very good opportunity to interact with others, and I think today is just an expression of the commitment of the Perka project to learn about postdoctoral opportunities. What I will do is to give you a short overview of what the Carta program is doing, and then focus on the Carnegie-funded postdoctoral opportunities. Carta is the Consortium for Advanced Research Training in Africa. We have 8 partner universities in the continent, 2 in Nigeria, University of Ibadan and OAU. Please forgive me not to try to pronounce the full name. I don't want to mess it up. We have a strong presence in East Africa, 2 universities in Kenya, University of Nairobi and Moi University, Makerere in Uganda and the University of Rwanda. And finally, in the Southern Cone, we work with the University of Malawi and WITS. We also have 4 research centers as partners, APHRC and KEMRI in Kenya, Agincourt in South Africa, and Ifakara here in Tanzania. And we work with 8 non-African partners who support us in the technical processes and provide technical support. Our aim is to enhance the capacity of African universities to lead globally competitive research and training programs, build a vibrant, viable, sustainable multidisciplinary research hubs at those African universities, and create networks of locally trained and internationally recognized scholars. We aim to do that through 3 strategic approaches. We have a very strong component of doctoral training. We moved into securing the future of our Carta graduates once we started getting PhD graduates. And we also work on the institutionalization of Carta activities, Carta innovations. Now, what we're discussing here today is under the umbrella of securing the future of Carta graduates, where we offer re-entry grants, postdoctoral fellowships, which can be full-time or split. We offer graduate workshops, where we train our fellows to write grants. We offer training as PhD supervisors, as postgraduate supervisors, and we encourage our fellows and graduates to take ambassadorial roles within their institutions. The primary objectives of the Carnegie postdoctoral opportunities are to extend and deepen the graduates' scientific and technical abilities, to strengthen their scholarly and proposal writing skills, to improve their ability to supervise postgraduate students, masters and PhD, and of course to do that with being mindful of diversity and always try to keep a 40-60 proportion for either gender. The experience of Carta with balancing gender has recently been published. I invite you to read our commentary on our experience trying to support women in science through the pipeline of PhD training and to graduate. So with these objectives in mind, the main components that the Carnegie Foundation is supporting us with aim at training independent researchers who will strengthen research capacity at their institutions. Carta has always an institutional approach to research capacity strengthening. The main components of the postdoctoral opportunities that we offer are, of course, to ensure that they have a protected time to do research. We make a strong emphasis on both networking and mentoring. And of course, during the postdoctoral award, they have to make sure they publish, they disseminate their research in conferences, and they have to write at least one proposal for future funding after their postdoc. The general characteristics of the Carnegie opportunities, the basics is that each of them is 1 year, and they can opt to the 2, so they can do a 2-year, but it doesn't have to be one after another. They are competitive and they are fully externally evaluated, so our non-African partners look for reviewers in the area, and each proposal receives three reviews, and they are reviewed on basis of the quality of the research, the mentoring component of the project, and the CV of the applicant. As I've mentioned, we have the conventional postdoc, which can be full-time or split, and the re-entry grant, which is now a bit more structured. We have reinforced it because it was much more popular than the fellowships, and it includes visiting an external mentor and a visit from the external mentor to the home institution of the fellow. Of course, with the aim of exposing the fellows to a productive research environment and hopefully a different research culture, breaking down unproductive hierarchies that are very often found in our institutions, and building research and leadership capacity and confidence in our graduates. Apart from these traditional fellowships and the grants, we also offer opportunities for graduates to engage with the Carta machinery, the general Carta program. So they have been involved in curriculum development and review for postgraduate trainings at their institutions and also with us in Carta, in grant proposals that the Carta teams at the different institutions put together to institutionalize the Carta innovations. We support them through supervision and mentorship. I've mentioned the trainings. They also are called upon to facilitate in the trainings that we do in the Carta PhD program. And we also encourage them to take leadership roles in academia, in research, and their specific professions. Several of them have been, some of our graduates have been nominated associate deans for postgraduate studies. We have 2 or 3 in professional bodies in their fields, someone in the pharmacy national board, the cancer research board, and things like that. The numbers of the Carnegie postdoctoral opportunities are more or less balanced in gender, 46 to 54%. Although in the general project Carta, all the postdoctoral opportunities were a bit more skewed. We have around 40-60. But that is probably, or we think is probably due because in our our postdocs are given to our graduates from the PhD program. And in the initial cohorts, we had less women applying for the scholarships. We are currently actually experiencing totally the opposite, and we are having many more women applying for the PhD scholarships, and many of them ranking in the top and being selected for PhD training. So actually at PhD training level, we are now at a 60-40 female-male. So when those get to graduates, of course, the ratio of postdocs will also shift. So in total, the Carnegie program, the Carnegie Foundation has supported 26 opportunities. The re-entry grants are much more popular than the postdoc fellowships. Our graduates tell us that it's very hard for them to leave their institutions and their families after a long PhD training. The CARTA PhD training asks them to leave their institution at least in 4 occasions for 1 full month for trainings that are residential and take place in particular institutions. And that seems to be quite a burden on them personally and professionally. The universities can't just let their staff go for such a long time. So when they finish their PhD, they're having a hard time both leaving their families behind to go on a postdoc and also receiving a leave for them to go and stay and do a research stay elsewhere. So there are entry grants that allow them to do their research at their home institution, even though with a component of visiting abroad and receiving visits from the external mentor, seem to be easier for them to cope with both their family and their work responsibilities. The numbers that our postdocs have given us, and I have to say that 9 of these 26 have just started in the months of August, September, so they haven't produced much, or the outputs are yet to come. And we have a few graduates who delayed from the ones that started late last year that have requested for a bit of an extension, probably to go into February, March. The reasons for delays are different in each case, but in general, they are usually associated with delays in getting ethical approval, or getting some administrative delay, getting the leave to go visit, or issues when they have to travel to the US or Canada. So these outputs are actually from 10 fellows who have already published 38 peer-reviewed publications, and the numbers tell us that female fellows publish as many first author papers as male fellows, but male fellows tend to be better at collaborating, or they get themselves in more as co-authors in more papers. In supervision, female fellows seem to be taking more of that responsibility. They supervise they have already supervised 25 master's students. They are supervising less PhD students, though, than their male fellows. And altogether, these 10 fellows have already secured near $3 million in external funds. And I have to say that 2.2 million of these are from female fellows. We have a few very active female fellows among our graduates. Apart from these postdoctoral fellowships and re-entries, as I've mentioned, we train them through the graduate workshop, which is focused on grant writing. The last 2 that just happened in January and October 2018, funded by Carnegie, trained 27 of our graduates. 18 of these fellows moved on to apply for our postdoc awards and got their grants or scholarship. Very few of those who came to the graduate workshop did not make it through the evaluation for the postdoctoral awards. The next one is coming up in February. We're just closing the call, and we already have 19 applications. We hope we will take somewhere between 20 and 25 new graduates to be trained. We're currently at around 77 graduates, although this number changes every week. Of them, 19 have attended the supervisor's training. And now, just in a couple of weeks, we are having the next supervisor's training in which another 9 are going to be trained. Those are the general numbers for our scholarships, our re-entry grants, our workshops, and the general involvement of the graduates from Carta. So I will be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. What we're going to do is first we're going to go through all the 3 presentations. Thanks a lot. Maybe you can take a seat. But as she's taking a seat, please write those questions down. For me, what I would like to see as well, even for the next presenters, is to indicate the origin of the postdocs within the African countries, because we are dealing with different SGCIs here. Just indicate how many come from where the geographical spread. And thanks a lot, Martha, for painting that picture, as well as our intent today will be trying to build brick by brick, but keep at the back of your mind, we're trying to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is how the whole system within the respective countries and within the continent is going to be shifted if we collectively work towards PhDs, postdocs, and accelerate how postdocs become established researchers. So let's keep in mind that. So that's one of the Carnegie supported projects. In total, since 2010, Carnegie has supported close to 500 postdocs. That's a big number in the continent. And almost half of those have been females, which is as well a very good number. And I'm happy to see even the presentation that Martha gave, the representation of women as well being much more amplified and visible. That's very, very key. And as well, let's keep in mind some of the challenges that we have within the national system. So it's not like as we are presenting, it's all smooth. There's a lot of challenges within specific contexts, within specific challenges, but we know we need to do it. For instance, in South Africa, an example, a postdoc, when you finish a PhD, to become an established researcher, it can take you almost 25 to 30 years. That's a damn lot of time to be doing research. And remember, it's a whole systematic approach. How do you work with universities within that system? How do you become a proper academia or you're working within the system? And that's why the SGCIs come in as well actively in that space. Noktula, you're next. Just give us a brief on the second program that we're going to present.
Thank you. Good morning once again. I'm here to present the Early Career Research Leader Fellowship hosted by the University of Pretoria at the Future Africa campus. This is, can I just say, I think this initiative is very good for us. I think at the end of the day, it will help us come up with guidelines on how postdocs should be carried out, because this is a new program and we've faced quite a number of challenges. So I've found this very helpful after the first meeting in terms of going back and doing changes on certain things. So this for me is kind of sharing ideas, and I hope this will also be useful to other people sitting here right now. So the main objective of the fellowship, so the whole idea when this fellowship was developed, it was to try and create a critical mass of science leaders, especially for Africa. I think one of the biggest challenges that we face in Africa is that we face a lot of researchers that leave the continent because of lack of resources and also because they don't seem to find the right kind of support. So this was one of the main reasons why this was put together. And also just to have a lot of Africans participate in the community of sciences. So this was just to help them to get sort of a footing into that. So one of the ideas for that obviously is to create research and to create future leaders, so that we call them, especially when it comes to research. And we are also key on the trans and interdisciplinary aspect, bringing together different disciplines, because the whole idea of working in silos doesn't work anymore. So we've realized that there's actually value in putting together different minds, different disciplines to sort of work on our challenges as Africa. And also the idea of a bioeconomy. We don't just see ourselves as researchers, we also need to contribute to the economy of our continent. So those are the big ideas. We're also trying to bridge the gap between institutions. We recognize that we are not all well-resourced, so the whole idea is to have the easy transfer of knowledge, transfer of resources, transfer of skills. So this is sort of to create the partnerships throughout Africa. And also we're trying to create the network. If you look at our logo, it's got those links, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create the network so that it's easy to, if you have a grant application, you can sort of get in touch with a colleague in Malawi, you can get in touch with a colleague in Ghana, and in a sense, try and work out our own challenges. So our selection criteria, as I was listening yesterday, it became clear that a lot of the programs, the fellows have sort of been with them probably from bachelor's through master's, PhD, and postdoc. Ours was different because we had to put out a call, and we had to put out a call only for postdocs. So we met these fellows only on application for the first time for the postdoctoral fellowship. We had no previous relationship with them, but the idea was just to sort of extend this and make it open to anyone in Africa. So it was just an open call, and the idea was to have people that have future prospects who are pro-research development and are keen on being leaders and rising in the research training and becoming, professors and key leaders in their own institutions. We looked at diversity. Culture is a big thing. We wanted to be inclusive. We wanted to include all disciplines. We were not discipline specific. We wanted to be gender. There was a good question last week, gender binary. We didn't look into that. But we tried to be as inclusive as possible. Age-wise, our age ranges between 27 and 50, late 50s. So we were not very in terms of including people. We just wanted to extend it as a first-time go for us. We want to see how it works. If it doesn't work, then we'll change our strategy. But the whole point is just to open it up to whoever is a researcher and they are key on being future leaders. So that was the whole idea. And the person had to have a research position. They must be a lecturer or be with a research institution, and they must be active in research. Obviously, there must be a sign, like show scholarly record in terms of publication, someone that's actively, engaged in research, publishing, and show that they are actually key in developing themselves. There must be some demonstration of leadership, and we wanted them to be able to communicate the impact. I think one of the key things that as scientists we're always criticized of is that we operate in our own silos and we as long as my colleague understands, as long as people in my discipline understand what I'm doing, that's fine. We wanted people that have an open mind in terms of letting influence and public engagement in the work that they are doing. So we wanted people that are not only focused in creating change in their own discipline. So the expected duration of, we got the grant last year, but because of a few challenges, we couldn't start when we got the grant. So we decided January was the year we were going to start. January 2019 was when we started. So we're in our 11th month. It's not been easy. We've had a few challenges, but we're still going. So it's going to run until the end of 2020 next year. So we have, obviously they had to have their proposals and we work on their research projects. We're also key on developing their skills, capacity development, so they are constantly engaged in dialogues, seminars, workshops. So that's just trying to not only focus on the academic aspect, but also on the administration and also in engaging other aspects as a leader that you need to be engaged in. Just not focusing solely on the research, but just involving them in as much as possible in anything else that Future Africa is able to provide to them. So there's a lot of opportunities for them to network. Some of them are compulsory, some of them are open. When we put out our call, we requested that they spend at least 70% of the time in Future Africa with their mentor. That is because we want to make sure that they get these connections, so they get which when you're not able to go to your host institution, you're able to afford it. We do understand when a lot of people get to their home environments or their work situations, they don't always have the time. They're bogged down by lectures, by having to mark assignments, they need to supervise students. So the 70% of the time is just to give them that advantage of focusing on the research, on the networking, and extending whatever they start to make sure that when they go back for the 30% or when they go back after the 2 years, it's something that they have sort of developed roots in terms of securing whatever they've started at Future Africa. Transdisciplinary, as I've said before, is very key. So we make sure that in their proposal, they have an element of transdisciplinary. They must show that they've included other disciplines in the work that they do. So that's very key to us. We try and get experts in different fields to work with them so that they are able to identify gaps where they can include other disciplines to make their work more innovative and stand out apart from just working on your discipline alone. And innovative research is very key to us. I think we try and make sure that whatever they create is something that will stand out, and I think that's what a lot of researchers do. They try and create something that's different from what others have done. So the funding component, we try to make sure that we relieve them of a lot of stresses. We cannot, I think, as much as we try, we cannot always remove all the stresses that people struggle with. But one of the things that we've sort of tried to do is to go as far as possible in supporting them financially. There are some elements, we can't obviously cover on everything. So we try and provide lodging. So they have their lodging and meals all paid for. So they come there, everything is sorted. They have a return ticket to come to Future Africa and be there with their mentor. They get a monthly stipend and they get one conference a year. So they have to go, they must present at least at one conference, internationally or nationally. But it must be a very, them motivation to present that. We also give them and we motivate that they also need to add on to that seed funding. I think there's much understanding when you give that a lot of people don't understand what the seed funding is. So we also try and to get involved in, which are some of the workshops that we offer them to sort of prepare them or give them opportunities on training on how to write grants for research funding. And we also offer the host mentor opportunity to travel to the fellows' home base. Because we're trying to create links, we're trying to create lasting relationships, we offer the host from the University of Pretoria an opportunity to travel to the host country. I know you asked about where the fellows come from. We've got fellows from Uganda, we've got fellows from Malawi, we've got fellows from Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Zambia, and Mauritius. In total, we have 15. So we try to offer, not try, it's part of the package that the host mentor must visit the fellows' home base to sort of see where they work, to sort of try and create that a bond between the host mentor and the home mentor where the fellow is based. So our conditions for continuation, we've got progress reports, which is very critical for us to show their commitment to the program. I think it also, in terms of monitoring, if they are progressing or if they are not, it's helped us a lot. So we've got 2 of them, one mid-year, and then the other one is coming up at the end of the year. And as I've mentioned before, we've got compulsory attendance. So we offer a lot of workshops, we offer a lot of dialogues and seminars as part of Future Africa, and they must at least attend 70% of that. So we give them sort of a list of seminars and workshops and dialogues that we will have in a given month or over a given stretch, and they must pick and attend as much as possible. And we also request that they spend 70% of their time with their host mentor to try and hone in on those skills that they need to develop before they go back to their home bases. Publications is very key. Based on their proposal and what their plans are, we look forward to them publishing. And also not in just scientific publication. We also encourage them to engage in science communication, you know, op-eds, writing news pieces, opinion pieces, so on and so forth. Progress report is coming up again, but I've mentioned that on the previous points. So we see this as a lasting connection. So the links that are created creates continued mentorship for the fellow when they go back to their home base. So they can always connect with the host mentor at the University of Pretoria in terms of going back for resources or use of the lab materials or lab space. So that mentorship continues. And we also try and create partnerships with their home universities. I think that comes up later. So there's 1 or 2 universities that we've sort of now created partnership with. There's now talks of exchange of PhD students, talks of projects beyond what the fellow is doing, which is quite a good progress that we've made so far. We also request that they mentor graduate students and they connect them to the projects that they start. So we see the projects that they start as growing bigger. So we would like for them to get more people involved in the project they start. Go back to their home bases. We encourage them to start research projects, a program based on what they have learned from Future Africa. Network collaborations, partnerships, I've mentioned that a number of times. That's what we're here on. So some key achievements I've mentioned briefly. We've got sort of a cemented partnership with the University of Mauritius. There's talks of exchange of students of more than 1 or 2 programs that will be coming up because of, they've started based after the fellowship. So there was further communication apart just from the postdoctoral fellowship. We've got the University of Ghana School of Veterinary Medicine. There's also talks of continued partnership, continued mentorship, apart from just the postdoctoral fellowship. So it's now extending to undergraduate programs where the host mentor has offered to go and give lectures to the veterinary medicine School of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Ghana. And we've also got a site, connectors.africa, which is sort of been helpful in terms of fellows when they seek grants. If they don't find anyone in their immediate space that they can partner with. We've created this platform, so it's a database that they can go on and approach people who have interest in the same disciplines that they want to work on and work on those and create collaborations. We've got 1 or 2 fellows that have used this site, and they've got projects that are currently running. One is on migration, and I think the other one is doing something related to cancer treatment. And it's been very interesting for us to see that the fellows are actually using the resources that we're offering to them. I think just to preview a brief insight of a condensed involvement of what we expose the fellows to. I'll run a video of what we offer at Future Africa and part of what the fellows.
Responsibility who wish to work towards a more equitable and sustainable future. We present Future Africa,
a platform where research excellence and the development of transdisciplinary research networks are at the heart of what we do. An inclusive design that provides a dynamic living, learning, and research environment.
The innovative architecture and the forage gardens of the campus plays an active role in shaping minds as much as it does in shaping a sustainable environment.
A truly productive landscape. The campus can accommodate several programs with ease, with facilities such as dining hall and restaurants, conference center, numerous breakaway and workshop spaces, a research commons with desk, office, and meeting spaces, and 280 living units.
Set in tranquil and safe surroundings, yet well connected to the city and the university amenities, Future Africa offers a healthy and productive research lifestyle destination. The Future Africa initiative hosts a new generation of research leaders. This platform serves as a hub for them to develop research networks across the continent and across the globe.
Our interactive workshops will bring together groups of researchers, government, funders, and other relevant societal representatives from across Africa and the globe to engage on selected challenges and opportunities that require transdisciplinary solutions.
Our dialogue fora and seminar series invite leaders in governments and society, as well as leading local and visiting scholars, to participate in co-designing research programs for real-life solutions.
A community, a hub, a home for scholars, and a physical meeting place. An environment where a community of scholars and other societal role players can continuously engage with one another towards a better future for Africa.
We endeavor to take personal and collective responsibility to lead the change that is needed to make the world a more equitable and sustainable place through excellence in transdisciplinary research.
At Future Africa, we believe that together we can transform the world through African research excellence.
Thanks a lot, Noktula.
And those are our fellows. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So you heard from one, and then we will have 2 more presentations. And then later on, we'll go for tea. We'll have short questions. When we come back after tea, it won't be about questions, it will be about solutions between the SGCIs, these programs, or any other programs that might not be presented here. And from the previous 2 presentations, you see where this is going, right? Where the missing puzzle is. There's postdocs connecting across the continents amongst themselves. They're connecting with peers within the continent. There's universities talking within the continent as well as outside the continent. But there's no talking between all these initiatives and the public funding agencies. So that's the missing puzzle that we'll try and solve after tea. I'll now call upon Fred to give us another perspective or showcase one of the centers. Thanks, Fred.
Good morning, everyone. I'm afraid I don't have a PowerPoint presentation because I missed the initial invitation to do this, and I was told this morning that I have to be here. But I do have flyers which will give you some indication of what it is that we're doing. So I'll circulate these now. So the African Humanities Program started operating about 12 years ago, but we've been in active operation for about a decade. During that time, we've given out 299 postdocs and about 107 doctoral completion scholarships. So in terms of the Carnegie offerings of postdocs, we constitute about 60% of those. We don't only offer postdocs, of course. We do a whole range of things to support those postdocs. And one of the key features of the AHP has been our mentoring programs. And so we have a whole range of those, starting off with what we call manuscript development workshops, which are very intensive, week-long periods of intensive engagements with the manuscripts of our fellows. We call for applications for these workshops, and we choose 8 fellows, and we have 4 mentors, so 2 mentees to each mentor at those workshops. And it's a huge injection of intellectual energy in our fellows. And the results have been quite remarkable coming out of those manuscript development workshops. We also have periods of residency where people can of their own country to one of the approved residency sites in the rest of the continent, really. Those 299 fellows and 7 doctoral completion scholarships come from 73 universities. We operate in 5 African countries, in Ghana, Nigeria, Uganda, Tanzania, and South Africa. But because our eligibility is by domicile, not nationality, our spread is much further than those 5 countries, especially in Southern Africa, where about half of our fellows are from outside of South Africa, from Malawi, many from Zimbabwe, from Botswana, Swaziland, and so on. And so the way in which the AHP works, I think is quite important. I'm taking the injunction from our chairperson not to focus on the specifics, but just to give kind of broad strokes about the program. The program was started by the American Council of Learned Societies through a grant from Carnegie. We are at the moment in a period of transition towards trying to, what people are calling, repatriating the program to the continent. So we have formed an interim steering committee to usher the program to the continent as a whole. We will probably be inaugurating this new, the new AHP in the form of the AHA, with an exclamation mark, which stands for the African Humanities Association. And that will happen in Abuja in February. At a regional assembly, we have these regional assemblies in each of the 5 participating countries, where we invite all the fellows from that particular country and then a selection of fellows from the other countries. It has been a hugely important injection within the humanities. It has revitalized the humanities at very many universities, specifically in Nigeria, where the impact has been quite profound, where we now have locally organized meetings and workshops to prepare prospective applicants for to apply for the program. So our closing date for the next one is, I think, on the 20th of this month. I think one of the successes of our program comes from the way in which it was designed. It was designed following a series of workshops across the continent in those 5 countries, where there was very deep engagement with local humanities communities. The overall objective was to try to revitalize the humanities. And that, of course, is an ongoing concern for us, especially given the context of generalized derision that there exists towards the humanities. In Uganda, for example, last year, the president issued a decree that humanities graduates should not be employed in state agencies and in ministries. So himself being a humanities graduate, by the way, from the University of Dar es Salaam. So given that, and even if you think about a meeting like this, if you think about it, I haven't seen the word humanities mentioned anywhere, and yet the humanities constitute 60% of these postdocs. What you hear is science. So a kind of an identity of being scientists is being imposed on those who are humanities, and it doesn't fit, because we are not scientists, and we don't pretend to be scientists, and we don't want to be scientists. So there has to be a way in which the place of the humanities broadly within the knowledge system is recognized more firmly and not marginalized to the extent that it doesn't get a mention at all, even though in practice it constitutes more than the majority of postdocs. So for us, it's an exciting program to be able to put the position of the humanities to the fore, because I don't want to stand here and argue about why the humanities are important, because I think that for all of us, it's kind of self-evident. But because of the way in which knowledge has been commodified and the way in which the utility of particular disciplines is considered to be of greater value than others, and some disciplines are rejected in that kind of way, it doesn't make sense for me to do that here. But what I would like to do is to point out that without the humanities, there would be a huge subtraction in who we are as a people. What we do is not to offer quick fix technicist solutions to our very many problems. We don't do that. What we are in the business of doing is asking the very hard critical questions of establishing what the ethical responsibilities are for particular scholars, of looking at particular development options and then deciding on how those development options might have long-lasting ethical and moral implications for who we are as a people. So it's important for us within the continent to be able to be contributing towards a body of scholars, a community of scholarship that is self-referring and self-respecting. It's quite well known that as a continent, we contribute only 2.5% to global book output. Now that's a scandal. But what is even more scandalous is that of that 2.5%, 80% are school textbooks. So you can see that we have a huge mountain to climb in terms of how we define ourselves and how we understand our own condition. And that is part of the mission of ensuring that we do have these communities of scholarship, and that's what we've been trying to do within the AHP. And so when our chair speaks about connecting people across the continent, and when we hear very nicely about Future Africa doing the same thing, we're trying to do the same thing within the African Humanities Program as well, and which in future will be the African Humanities Association. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Fred. So more questions and more argument points. I'm sure we'll have very good discussions later on. But again, not as well dwelling too much on diverting a lot from the scope of the studies. And I always tend to have another school of thought apart from Fred's one when you speak of humanities and social science and physical sciences. It's always science. And for me, the approach is, if you look at this day and age, the issues that we are faced with within the globe, whether at community level, global level, they require multidisciplinary approaches that to some extent has to be driven by these sciences, both humanities and physical sciences. But that's easier said than done. That's the emphasis to say, let's not show this dominance and recessive kind of approach, but how do we actually recognize that with regards to some of the funding in social sciences or humanities is very, very low. How do we recognize that and amplify it from the Science Granting Council perspective? So glad to hear that you're raising it. I'm sure it will be discussions we have after tea. I'll call upon Mohamed Kostek just to give us an overview of a snapshot of what the granting councils in the continent are doing. We've heard what Carnegie is doing. We've heard what the centers are doing. Now Kostek will give us a bit of what they are doing in the continent.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'll try to be very specific on what Tanzania Commission for Science and Technology is doing in terms of supporting our postdoc. And we are promoting and coordinating research, technology, and innovation in Tanzania. And indeed, one among the core activities or task is to build a very strong base on science excellence or research excellence. So by doing so, we are trying to promote our postdoc, though we have to admit that we are facing challenges such as relative few opportunities and funding in the country, as other granting councils do. But also, there is a low support for motivation for early career researchers. And sometimes after finishing their PhDs, they're going direct for teaching and research in the R&Ds. And we have very specific case study. We have been supporting from 2012. And this was a joint program between Tanzania, Sweden, and the Netherlands. And the objective, of course, was to enhance scientific excellence and strengthen research collaboration between Europe and Africa. So this was the first case as a pilot as COSTECH. And it was jointly for implementation, but more important, we had a co-funding between these countries. So Tanzania Commission for Science and Technology contributed, Swedish CEDA, and also NWO for the Netherlands contributed in one basket to support this program. And in each project, of course, we had Tanzanian scientists, and that was a condition for getting this postdoc. So one team consisted of 2 researchers, one Tanzanian and one Swedish, or one Tanzanian and one Dutch. And finally we got about 4 projects and ran for 3 years. And this pilot, of course, we spent almost 900,000 euros from these countries. I mean, Tanzania, Netherlands, and Sweden. So the program lasts for 2 years, and as I have already mentioned, that in each project, of course, we should have 2 scientists. And research worked in Tanzania and either in Sweden or Netherlands, and 4 projects were awarded. And we had a call, and we received almost 34 applications, and only 4 awarded. And mainly it was about monitoring, about trade in Tanzania, wildlife harvested medicinal plants. And we had novel therapies to reduce scarring and quality of life assessment. That was implemented by the colleague from Dutch and Tanzania. And targeting breeding site preference of disease spreading mosquitoes. That was the colleague from Tanzania, Netherlands, and the last one was about humanities. Is that right? Languages, vitality, and intergovernmental transmission. So this program was very successful, and finally we had very good output. And what was interesting of this program, of course, to build international team and try to exchange in terms of to exchange knowledge, to exchange experience, and more importantly, to build international research team. So in implementing this, we had several lessons learned. The first one was about sustainability. I think we have to look this problem in the African context, because we might have very good program, but we should have strategies to sustain the program. Because at the end of the day, if you have this program and you don't have good strategy, it may end up within 3 years, and the target might not be reached. The second one was about lacking of guiding framework for Tanzania. This is very important because we have various programs, and finally we need to have a coherent system that to get on what we intend to, because we need to get very competent workforce that can help research ecosystem within the continent. So I think having framework, guiding frameworks for hosting postdoc, criteria and output, how can get their life, like good stipend, how they can enjoy, how can they go for conferences, and to build the capacity of attracting other funding as well. So we need to have very robust guiding framework or instrument that can help to have such kind of system. Of course, it's very apparent that we have a high interest of new graduates, but the number of the requests or the applications we have, there is imbalance between the applications and the resources that we do have at the Granting Council. And in Tanzania specific for higher learning institutions and research institution and even in public services, there is no clear recognition of postdoc fellow. Because if you have masters, if you have PhD, then there is a clear ladder of promotion within universities. But postdoc, it doesn't add value in terms of recognition and promotion. So, of course, if you publish during your postdoc, then you can be considered. Otherwise, postdoctoral as a postdoc, then is not clear in Tanzania. So after finishing that pilot, of course, from the lesson learned from the previous project, then we started to develop postdoc framework, and we started 2015. And I'm glad to declare that the framework has already been developed and ready for use anytime soon. And within the framework, of course, there are main components, including required, but also we do, because postdoc is not common for many universities within Africa. So even mentors, they should have some guidelines. They should be guided how to mentor the postdoc, because the postdoc fellow is not like the PhD student. It's like some universities, they consider that as assistant professor or associate professor. So they should get working space. They should get funding to attend conferences. For postdoc also, you can even be a good mentor for PhD students. So within the framework, you can find there is some guideline for mentoring, funding schemes, what is supposed to get after your postdoc. And we will share this framework to universities and all potential higher learning institutions within the country. And last year, of course, we tested the framework. So we had a special window using the National Fund for Science and Advancement from Tanzania Commission for Science and Technology. We floated a call. It was last year, and finally we awarded 6 fellow, and they have already started to work with their funding. And let me conclude with these few points. Definitely there is a high awareness among Tanzanians, but also as per our previous program, joint programs proved successful for exposure and knowledge exchange and building strong research teams. Based on our experience of Tanzania, Swedish, and Dutch model that we used, we are also advising to other granting councils to try to promote partnership, not to do as in silo condition. And more funding is needed to sustain the program, because we have a good number of PhD graduates, and before starting their business, whether teaching or conducting research, they need to have their niche. they need to have to build their competence for mentoring, for teaching, and conducting research. And furthermore, it's very good opportunity having a postdoc fellowship for self-preparation to be a good researcher. Before becoming busy with university administration stuff, then it's good time, soon after finishing PhD, you join for postdoc. Definitely more funding is needed, specifically for sustaining this kind of program. And finally, this is a special invitation for granting councils, for other funders to join up our effort to sustain the postdoc initiative. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mohammed. So we've heard from both ends. We've heard from the postdoc end, and Mohammed has done justice to speak of some of the programs that the science granting councils are doing currently in the continent. Of course, there's issues of numbers, but as well there's issues of quality of postdocs that we are producing and the opportunities that we provide for both the PhDs, the postdocs, and the after postdoc journey that they're faced with. This, as we started, cannot be done individually. It's a collective effort from government, funding agencies. We are in the middle of government and the universities, as well as all these centers and postdocs themselves. I'll open up the floor. Remember, it's for questions and clarifications. After we do that, we're going to go for tea. When we come back, it will be about solutions or how we can increase these networking opportunities that we're discussing today. Floor is open for questions and comments. Jeff.
Well, I have two questions for all the presenters. The first one is, what are these fellowships for? Are they to assist people to climb up the greasy pole of academic advancement, or are they to give them the opportunity to think, be creative, and to create the leaders? That's question number one. Question number two is clearly a trade-off between the number of fellowships you can have and the duration. So what is the logic for a large number of 1 or 2 year fellowships rather than a smaller number of 4 or 5 year fellowships?
Thanks, Jeff. Keep that question. I'll take 2 more. Yes, sir.
Yeah, maybe along the line, just to know whether these postdocs, after finishing their PhD, will have been given some form of appointment in the university, or is it preparatory to their getting appointment in the universities?
Thank you. More questions, please, unless everybody else is happy with what we discussed. Okay, we can start with the responses. Who wants to go first? It can be from a generic point of view or from a specific. Fred, you want to take it first?
Just in reference to the greasy pole, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think that you have to also take account of people's career advancement, and that we've had as a result of our program. If you'll notice on our flyer, for example, one of our kind of stalwarts in the AHP has become the Minister of Higher Education in Ghana. Now, I'm not suggesting that the AHP is a route to higher public office at all. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I do think that you can't try to train people to think critically without also taking account of their own needs for career advancement. I think to pose them as polar opposites is a spurious kind of questioned, really. It doesn't exist. You can do both, and you have to do both, in fact. Otherwise, who is going to become the senior professors? Who's going to become the vice chancellors? You know, or are the critical thinkers to remain at a lecturer level? It doesn't make sense. You have to get critical thinkers at all levels in the university. I forget that second question. What is that second question? Oh, in terms of the length. Yeah, no. Yeah, that is a huge issue for us. Our postdocs are 1 year in duration. That's it. It's a 1 year period without the option of a renewal. So it's a 1 year thing. Yeah. I suppose the rationale for that is to reach more people, to make it possible to reach more people and give more people the opportunity of having this postdoc. Already we are faced with huge numbers of applications. We get 700 applications for 40 postdocs. If we were to say the postdocs are going to be longer, then it will just become even more impossible. So that's why we do it.
That's one perspective. Natula, you want to comment as well?
I just want to add to what Fred is saying. I think we need to realize that Africa has a very, like the largest young population. And I don't know if we've prepared our young people enough. So for me, postdoctoral fellowships are a way of preparing our young people so that when the senior people are not able to hold those positions anymore, we're able to get young people ready for that. A lot of critique is directed towards not getting enough mentorship within the academic spaces, the employers. So postdoctoral fellowship offer that opportunity that you're not able to get from the leadership within the institution that you're in. So in our case, for example, we try to extend ourselves as much as possible, not only within the research space. So we give them a lot of skills that we think are necessary. That's why we call them leaders, because we see them as future leaders. Thank you.
Can I speak? Thank you. Ours is a slightly different model of postdocs. We do fund them for 5 years, interrupted on the 3rd year for consultation between the mentor, who in our case is usually a unit director of a research agenda of the Medical Research Council. So, so at the 3rd year, that mentor interacts with our office and with the HR of the Medical Research Council to confirm whether there is a plan for the postdoc. So we see this as a possible part answer to the question of what do we do with a person with a PhD who is not staff in the organization. So over on the 3rd year, like I say, we interrupt that for those kinds of discussions where the mentor must confirm with our office, which is a division of research capacity development, what plan they have for this postdoc. And they have the option, either party has the option of exiting the postdoc and the supervisor or the mentor taking on a new person, because that could happen when, for instance, the research agenda reaches a certain point where you know, maybe they now need a master's person or whatever, or if the postdoc themselves have found their own legal niche and wish to exit the bigger agenda of the research lead. So that could be, could answer some of the question of how do you build this capacity, but also how do you build some level of sustainability within an entity, like an organization and so on. My question for my own purposes is with the Pretoria model, I'd like to just find out what your average, the quantum that you pay towards each postdoc, because that's going to give us an idea of where we can tweak in South African rand. I'd appreciate that if it's not confidential. So that's our model. And so far it's working, but it's costly. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the insights from the Medical Research Council of South Africa. Martha, you want to give a comment as well before we break?
Yeah, I think I wanted to comment on all the questions, I guess, at the same time, or try to connect them. From our perspective, CARTA works with the institutions, and our fellows are staff members. Maybe because of that, the conflict between career development and what they can do during the postdoc, or the objective of that postdoc is not so strong, that they don't have to worry about getting a job afterwards. So our focus is capacity building and mentoring, getting them exposed to an external mentor, and hopefully if they take the fellowship, or at least in the visits, exposure to a new research, a different research environment. So it's more about the thinking and about gaining skills than about progressing in career. Of course, any academic who wants to progress needs to publish, but that's a broader discussion about the publish or perish conundrum. So we don't have to worry about whether they are given appointments afterwards or not, because they are staff members. Now that, because they are staff members, gives us, I guess, or puts us more in conflict with the length. As I mentioned earlier, they are having difficulties to even take a 1 year leave from their job to go on a postdoc. So actually the feedback we are getting from our graduates is that they want more opportunities for shorter interactions. That's why we had the split postdoc. We incorporated the split postdoc, and now we are thinking of how do we do it so that they get the exposure we want them to get and the training we want them to get without burdening in a short period of time.
Thanks a lot. More questions raised. We didn't answer the last one, but you can get the diversity of the comments that are coming out. And I like even the 3 comments where you have, on one extreme, you have the Medical Research Council who fund for 5 years postdocs, okay? On the other side, you have another extreme, 1 year postdoc. On the other side, it's postdocs who are already academics, lecturers. So we don't even have a commonality in the definition of what a postdoc is. So if I've finished my PhD now, okay, I want to do postdoc, I'll be very confused because that will be dependent on which program I'm about to join. So I think these are some of the things we should start putting at the back of our heads. Do we need to start actually defining what it means from an African context or from these unique programs of what a postdoc is? What an imaging researcher notation, how does it fit in there, the early careers, and throughout the pipeline? More questions to come. Can we break for how many minutes, Melody? 30 minutes, should I say? Okay, we can be back here at 11.